For that, Jayant Dasgupta is joining us, former ambassador and a representative of India at the World Trade Organization. And along with him, Avik Saha is also with us, the national president of the Kisan Andolan. We have seen 6 resolved disputes and they cover several areas, Mr. Dasgupta. And they are around countervailing measures on specific steel products. There are measures related to solar cells and modules. There are export-related measures as well. And the issue over additional duties on certain U.S. products, some of which were retaliatory in nature. So in terms of dispute resolution, how do you view what has transpired between the two nations, now pulling out these disputes from the World Trade Organization?
I think at the beginning, I would say that this is a very welcome step because there were certain measures which I would say the U.S. had initiated, which were outside the purview of the rights of member states, including the U.S. For instance, the duties on steel and aluminum products, they were imposed against 7 countries, and the U.S. lost in the panel at the panel stage because the panel recommended that there was no case made out for national security which the U.S. had invoked. Now, India had taken the diplomatic initiative to request the U.S. to withdraw these duties, but it failed to do so. And then in retaliation, India imposed duties on 28 products. So this was one set of things. The second was in 2013, there was this Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission, under which there was a requirement that 30% of the solar panels which were used should be of domestic origin. The US challenged it and it won a case against India. But India in retaliation also filed a case against the subsidies given in 8 US states for renewable energy, including solar energy. And the verdict was in favor of India. So, of course, in the case which the US had filed against India, India has said that it has brought its measure in conformity with the WTO. So that is pending in the WTO. So this is another set of issues. The third one was on countervailing duties on certain Indian hot-rolled carbon steel flat products. Now that is something which the US could at its discretion, but it has agreed to do so as a result of the consultations. The last one is, of course, something which hits at the very root of India's export promotion measure. There were certain things like the SEZ scheme, like the Export Promotion Capital Goods scheme, like the merchandise exports from India scheme. All these were challenged by the US, and the dispute settlement panel recommended that these were against the WTO obligations of India and they should be withdrawn. Now, this is where the shoe would have pinched India the most if the appellate body had been in existence or functioning. Now, since December 2019, because of the US intransigence, the appellate body vacancies have not been filled. So the appellate body of the WTO, which is the higher body, and an appeal has to be disposed of if a country decides to appeal against a panel report. Now that stage is not available because the appellate body has not been functioning since 2019. So this is another thing, of course, that the export measures which for which the US has won at the panel stage against India is withdrawing, or in a sense, it is not going to pursue the matter further. And
of course, as far as pursuing the matter is concerned, I mean, this could go on forever. But at this point in time, this resolution, in a sense, or an attempt at resolution outside the WTO, we've seen, like you correctly measured, and perhaps Mr. Avik would come in on this, Mr. Saha, as far as the American side is concerned, they sounded very upbeat. They've said that as a result of our work, U.S. agricultural producers and manufacturers are now going to enjoy this renewed access to a critical global market, and we will strengthen our trade relationship with one of our closest partners. Do tell us from what this development entails, because India in June of 2019 imposed these customs duties on 28 American products, and they include the likes of chickpeas and lentils and almonds, like I started out by saying, and walnuts and apples. Do tell us, are there any concerns on these goods, some of these American goods that will vie for a larger share of the Indian domestic wallet and compete with our own domestically produced goods?
Yes, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Mr. Dasgupta did share a very interesting, fact-filled presentation, but that was only half the story. You see, WTO has almost become defunct, and I think Mr. Dasgupta will agree, and he said so, because trade dispute resolution mechanism there has been stymied and made ineffective by the US. So in May 2022, under the current US president, the Indo-Pacific economic framework has started, and all the US lawmakers have been urging the president to make India join. There are 4 pillars in that framework. The trade pillar. India has kept away from the trade pillar. What Mr. Modi agreed to in Washington is an indirect entry into that trade pillar. Now India is de facto a part of the so-called Indo-Pacific economic framework. Now, what has been given and what has been taken? So the steel lobby, the aluminium lobby, which has access to the powers that be, have worked on the powers that be and got the tariff barrier that US had put removed. Excellent. So more Indian steel and aluminium will go to the US. At what cost? At the cost of the apple growers of Himachal and Kashmir, who are not getting prices for their product in India even today. In 2023, there was a big chaos in Himachal. In 2022, there was a big fight with the Adani group, the food division of that, because the apple growers were not getting prices. So now you're going to get more apples from the US into the market, into the Indian market, where the Indian producers are not getting prices. I'm not very clear on exactly how this government thinks about agricultural policy. It spends hundreds of crores of rupees on the pulses and oilseed mission, but it goes to the US and gives away the right of the Indian pulse growers and says, all right, we will import cheaply produced US chickpeas, and there was another product, chickpeas and lentil. I don't know much about almonds and walnut,
Yes.
but again, we are looking at that part of India,
Yes.
which doesn't have much, Kashmir, Himachal, those areas. So I have 3 questions, basically.
Sure. Go ahead, sir.
Before agreeing to allow agricultural import into India, who exactly did this government consult? Did it consult the farmers' body, any stakeholder, any representative? Can the government give away the interest of the Indian farmers in this way? Why is this government so anti-farmer? Is a question which every farmer will logically ask. The second is, I take you back to 2017. We got Harley Davidsons into India in exchange of Indian mangoes. I'm sure everybody remembers. Do you know what was the export value of Indian mangoes this year? Close to 0. So you allow access to a trade partner who has there's a huge trade imbalance anyway. And that partner brings in food products into your country, into a sector that is already suffering. So at the cost of the farm sector, at the cost of farmers and the agri sector, a tariff deal has been done in the US. I'm sorry, I don't understand what is there to celebrate and what is there to feel.
Mr. Dasgupta, do you think there is parity between India and US in pulling out these disputes over at the WTO, especially like Mr. Saha is pointing out, when it comes to agricultural products? we may have a problem on our hands where our exports are going to get that much more challenged with the imports of these American agricultural goods?
Well, I must say that I don't quite agree with the views expressed by Mr. Saha for the following reasons. One, we had also retaliated against the U.S., if I may say so, in a non-WTO compliant manner, in a unilateral manner, as the U.S. had done against us on iron and steel. Apples, if we take the example, are already coming from New Zealand and Australia and many other countries. So the duties to which apples from Australia are subjected to will be the same duties that American apples will be subjected to now. Because of during the interregnum between 2019 and now, the American apples were being discriminated against. They were subjected to higher duty. As far as the other products are concerned, about walnuts and almonds, now there is another country which would be slightly perhaps unhappy with this, because we give concessions to Afghanistan, which produces walnuts and almonds and is getting duty-free access to India. Now, the American products in this category will again be subjected to most favored nation duties, which they were paying before 2019. After 2019, they suddenly had to pay much higher duties because of the retaliatory action by India. So this is not going to upset the apple cart very much, so to say, pun unintended. And the other point is that these products were selected not because India was vulnerable from the point of view of imports of these products from the US. The approximate cost to the Indian export basket was about $300 million or so on account of the duties imposed on iron and steel. So we selected those products in which there were a large number of American producers involved, and that if we raise the duties, the revenue which would be, they would be liable to pay in addition would be approximately $300. So there was this element of reciprocity in the retaliation also. So these products are not products in which we are particularly vulnerable, and there are other countries which are exporting at the MFN rates. The Americans were for 4 years subjected to higher duties. So that is the only point.
We've seen whether we are paving the way for stronger trade ties and overall in the long run, whether the economy stands to gain. Yes, there will be this push and pull between different parts of our economy, between different manufacturers, and that is currently something that we are watching and observing. But overall, if the picture and the disputes are getting taken out and there are stronger trade links, it paves the way for stronger ties in the future, and that could benefit. But it remains to be seen. Mr. Saha, we appreciate your views. Mr. Dasgupta, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on this edition of India Tonight. Meanwhile,